Chapter 26: Legacy Without Achievement. Emotional Resonance That Remains. When most people hear the word legacy, they picture something visible and lasting in the public eye, a grand achievement, a name etched on a plaque, a published work, a building, or a line in a history book. The cultural image of legacy is often tied to success that can be measured, celebrated, and recorded. Yet for the vast majority of us, what remains after we are gone will not be monuments, headlines, or public ceremonies. It will be something smaller, quieter, and far more personal. The truth is that our deepest legacy is not what we do in the formal sense, but the way we have made others feel, and the ways we have shifted their sense of safety, worth, or belonging. Sometimes it is no more than the habit of greeting someone warmly at the door. It might be the way we take a moment to truly listen, without checking the time or rushing them on. It could be the instinct to show kindness without expectation. A single exchange can leave a deeper and longer lasting imprint than an entire list of formal accomplishments. Within the Ghost movement, legacy is understood as emotional resonance, the traces of ourselves that continue to live in others, not because of any title we once held or milestone we reached, but because of the quality of presence we brought into shared life. This understanding moves us away from the idea that legacy must be earned through productivity or status. Instead, it invites us to recognize the marks we are already leaving on those around us and to consider how those marks might travel further than we will ever see. The dominant culture often frames legacy in terms of scale and visibility. The company built from nothing, the invention patented, the book that sold millions, the trophy in the glass cabinet. While these things can have value, they rarely tell the whole story of a life. Most legacies are far more intimate. They do not live in public archives, but in private memory, in the moments that no one else sees, carried quietly in the lives of those who were touched by them. Emotional resonance is the kind of legacy that cannot be listed on a CV. It is in the warmth someone feels when they recall a conversation with you many years later, in the steadiness they remember in your company, or in the courage you modelled that gave them a way through their own challenge. It can be the simple, steady trust you gave them when they doubted themselves. Such things are woven into the subtle ways people's lives shift because you were part of them. The invisibility of this kind of legacy is not a weakness. In fact, its strength often lies in the fact that it is carried forward without fanfare. It passes from person to person in gestures, words, or patterns of care that may never be traced back to you. The comfort you gave one evening might echo years later when the person you helped offers the same comfort to someone else, perhaps without even realizing where they learned it. These threads of influence cannot be counted or documented, yet they often shape more lives than any public achievement. In the Ghosts movement, legacy is seen as a living form of memory. It is not fixed in a single act or contained within an object. It moves, shifts, and reshapes itself as it is carried by others. This view frees us from the pressure to produce legacies that look impressive from the outside. It encourages us to give our attention to the moments and relationships that quietly carry meaning forward. Emotional resonance is not an abstract concept. It is physical. It lives in the body, in both the one who offers it and the one who receives it. The way we move, the tone of our voice, the way we make space for someone, all of these leave traces that linger long after we are no longer present. The way a hand rests lightly on another's shoulder can settle in the body's memory more deeply than 1,000 words. When we act with patience, compassion, or attentiveness, our bodies remember it. The warmth in the chest after a shared laugh, the softening of the shoulders when we truly listen, the way our breathing steadies in the presence of trust, all of these are physical markers of connection. Those who receive our presence often carry the same bodily memory. A child may feel a sense of calm whenever they smell a familiar scent, because it recalls the embrace of someone they loved. A friend might find their own breathing slow when they think of a moment you listened to them without judgment. The body also repeats what it has learned from others. Words, gestures, and tones of voice are passed along in ways we rarely notice. Someone who was comforted by you might, years later, offer comfort to another in the very same way, using the same rhythm of speech or the same phrasing. This is the living thread of embodied legacy. Our resonance is not only carried by people, it is also held by places, objects, and landscapes. The worn chair that still smells faintly of a familiar perfume, the folded letter kept in a drawer for decades, a tree planted in a garden that outlives the one who chose its place. These are not relics in a formal sense, yet they hold the shape of a relationship, the echo of a presence, the memory of a shared moment. In this understanding, embodiment is not limited to the present tense. It extends into the lives of others, sometimes in ways we will never know. Our influence becomes part of the living fabric that exists beyond our own time. We do not have to wait for the end of life to think about legacy. It is being built in the present moment, in the repeated ways we meet, speak, and share. There is no need for grand declarations or rehearsed goodbyes. Emotional resonance is most often created in ordinary acts. Paying attention when someone speaks, allowing space for their pauses, offering help without the shadow of expectation, a meal left on a doorstep, a message sent without reason, other than to say, "I was thinking of you." These are not grand enough to be news, yet they often outlast what is. The values that matter to us are not made clear by what we claim to believe, but by how we live. If we value honesty, we practice it even when it is awkward. If we value care, we make time for it even when we are tired. The simplest repeated gestures, a phone call every Sunday, a gathering every winter, a shared walk each year, can become the threads of connection that hold long after we are gone. Making space for others to carry forward what they have received from us is part of this work. It might be teaching a skill that will outlast us, passing on a family story that would otherwise fade, or simply showing a way of being that someone else can make their own. When we live our legacy now, we allow it to take root before we are gone. It becomes part of the soil others will stand on. Legacy, when understood in this way, is not something we can control. It is not ours to keep. Once given, it belongs to the lives it touches. It may be changed, transformed, or passed along in ways we could never have imagined. We may never see where it travels, but it travels nonetheless. What we carry in this life will, in some form, outlive us. It will live in remembered words, in a gesture someone repeats without knowing why, in the way a person stands a little taller because of something we once said. The absence of recognition does not lessen its truth. In some ways, the lack of record makes it stronger, for it becomes part of the living current of care that moves quietly through the world. To live with this understanding is to accept that the most important parts of who we are will not be measured in possessions or records, but in the subtle, steady changes we have helped create in the hearts and bodies of others. These are the echoes that remain long after the details of our lives fade. From here, we move towards the moment of leaving itself, not as an ending, but as a change in form, and consider how connection can remain even when we are no longer physically present.